Is it possible that the thing that most divides our loyalties and passions is what can inspire us all to work together? For centuries, sports has played a major role in defining the civic identity of America. Today, they hold the power and the ability to transform lives.
We're not looking for big league players, we're looking for big league people.
Ask the city of Los Angeles, who invested their profits from the 1984 Olympic Games in youth sports programs in the inner cities. Two sisters from Compton picked up a tennis racket. The rest is history. Sports allow an inspirational moment.
Oh, wow, what a moment.
To ignite a battle to find a cure.
We have raised a little over $3 million.
They provide life lessons and hope, and the benefits of working together for the greater good. Most of all, sports are one of the few remaining methods we have to reach at-risk youth for positive social change. That is the power of sports.
Welcome to the Power of Sports, presented by Group 1001. I'm your host, Rick Horrow. This month, we're in New Orleans, the Big Easy, the city that may very well personify the very purpose of this show, the power of sports. Since Hurricane Katrina in 2005, sports have played a key and sometimes even lead role in helping the city rebound and once again become one of America's most united communities. We'll get a one-of-a-kind tour with Doug Thornton, who coordinated the Superdome through the Katrina disaster and then led its growth back into a key social fabric of the city. We'll also talk to players and coaches at Tulane, whose athletic revival is equally remarkable and inspirational. We'll start things off with a trip around the city to see what New Orleans sports organizations are doing to give back, a segment we call City Pulse.
The Miracle League of Greater New Orleans offers kids with any level of disability to participate in a team sport on a fully accessible field. For the last 2 seasons, the New Orleans Baby Cakes, the AAA affiliate of the Miami Marlins, has spent an early fall day playing some baseball with the Miracle League kids.
With this Miracle League event that we have done year after year, our return players, they get excited about it because they're seeing some of the same kids each year. To see the joy on the kids' faces and the families' faces, and at the end of the day, you leave with a warm, fuzzy feeling because the kids have such a great time.
Attracting major sports events is the mission and purpose of the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation, one that has resulted in an economic impact of over $3.5 billion since 1998. The foundation leverages its efforts to organize positive events for youth across New Orleans.
Every event that we do has some sort of youth aspect to it. Annually, the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, we have a youth program that starts in the summer prior to the December bowl game with youth clinics. That carries through the entire fall to the actual event where we bring underserved youth to the game to make sure that we're able to maximize those events' impact in the youth community.
Their community work now even extends beyond sports. The foundation has partnered with the National World War II Museum, located in New Orleans, to create an annual event also targeted at youth across the city.
We use all those contacts and all the resources that we created over the past 30 years in the youth community to bring kids out to that event at no charge. For them to come out and see these incredible planes and the incredible military hardware and to learn more about what it took to win that war is something that we're very proud of.
That's the City Pulse for New Orleans this month. When we come back, and you're not going to want to miss this, an amazing and inspirational tour of the Superdome by Saints Hall of Famer Doug Thornton.
Doug Thornton's ties to Louisiana run deep. After being raised in Shreveport, Thornton played quarterback at McNeese State in Lake Charles. Currently the vice president of SMG, the company that manages the New Orleans Superdome, Thornton has overseen operations at one of the world's most iconic stadiums for 21 years. When Katrina struck in 2005, Thornton, 18 of his staff members, and the National Guard were informed just hours before it hit the city that the Superdome would be a refuge of last resort for New Orleans. Thornton expected a few thousand people to occupy the arena for a day at the most.
This is what the lines looked like trying to get in on that Sunday before Katrina hit. These were people that were coming out of the city trying to seek refuge here. Believe it or not.
Would you let them in?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, of course.
You see these trucks?
Yeah.
They're driving people from neighborhoods.
To the dome.
This was the only place in New Orleans where they could come. The National Guard was bringing them here in droves. They were being rescued off of rooftops, put in trucks, put in helicopters, and flown here. And that's how our population went from about 14,000, 15,000 on day one to nearly 30,000, 35,000 by the time we evacuated on that Thursday.
Thornton gave us a one-of-a-kind tour of the Superdome, showing us the iconic reminders of those harrowing days in 2005.
And as the water rose, we were afraid that the generator was going to be overtaken and it was going to terminate. And we would have no lights. We would have no electricity, which meant total darkness in the building.
For the 30,000 people who were in there?
For 30,000 people that were inside the building, there would be literally chaos. So instead of evacuating, we decided we were going to benchmark this water, and if it started to rise more than 5 inches in a half hour, we would have to evacuate the building and move people into the parking garages, which we didn't want to have to do. It was about 6:30 on Monday morning, August 29th. The storm is bearing down on us. I walked through this tunnel with one of the members of the National Guard, and there were 20,000, 25,000 people seated in this lower bowl all around us. But I look up and I see a gaping hole that has now been gashed by the wind, and the roof is starting to fail right here over the seating section. And it sounded like, I guess the best way to describe it is a roller coaster. Every time a big gust of wind would blow, you'd hear the steel metal deck hit the frame of the building. So we were afraid that we were going to lose a life in that seating section. People asked me if I was ever really afraid. That was the one moment in time when I was afraid for them and I was afraid for me.
Were you afraid that you weren't able to get out ahead of the problems
I was afraid that we were going to lose someone's life from a falling debris. I didn't know how long that roof was going to last.
Gave of yourself to basically the city and the region for those weeks. You're flying from here to Baton Rouge. You may not come back to where you live. A lot of mixed emotions during that time.
It was emotional for not only me, but for the 30,000 people that were here. It was such a heart-wrenching moment, you know, that whole 5-6 days that we were here to watch people suffer. And then think about this, to get on a helicopter and lift off and actually see the roof of the Superdome, a place where you have worked for 10, 15 years, where you spend every waking moment of your life, you put every ounce of your being into every week. All of a sudden, to see the roof peel like an onion, and then you fly around the city and you see 12, 15 feet of water in some places, and then you fly over your street and you see 7 feet of water in your street, in your house, and that's when it gets personal. You think, I can't come back.
The building saved lives. The building was really important as a facility of last refuge. Now you're rebuilding.
Roger Goodell and Paul Tagliabue and a whole cadre of NFL officials came down here. We said, yes, we can, but it's going to take 2 years. And eventually they said, well, 2 years is too long. We've got to have it open by next football season, which would have been the 2006 season, which was about probably 9 months faster than we thought it could be done. So just like anything else in life, when you're challenged and you're put to the test, you come up with creative solutions. So the 850 men and women who work 6 days a week, 7 days a week sometimes.
851, because you were out here.
851, I was out here too. And you know what? I saw what happened was remarkable. You talk about the human spirit. Many of these men and women, their fathers had worked on this building. They were steel workers working on the roof. There was such a tremendous sense of pride, they did not want to fail. We like to refer to this building as the living room of New Orleans, if you think about it. This is something they can be proud of. You know, the fact that it was reborn after Katrina, the fact that it's hosted all these major events, the fact that we've got the world coming to us every 3 or 4 years for these big opportunities. It's part of our social fabric, and sports means so much to this community. I saw it firsthand. They care so deeply about their sports teams. They were not going to let anything stand in the way of regaining and recapturing what they once had, and that was to bring those teams back here.
Well, and if this is the living room, you're the brother, father, grandfather of sports and economic development in this community. Thank you, my friend.
Good to see you, Rick. Thank you.
Tulane University is the largest employer in the city of New Orleans and has been closed only twice in nearly 200 years, the Civil War and Hurricane Katrina. Green Wave Athletics is a remarkable turning point in its post-Katrina recovery. Not only are some of its programs returning to national prominence they once enjoyed, but some of the athletes who are involved now were children when Katrina devastated New Orleans in August of 2005.
Katrina hit just 5 days prior to the start of the football season for the Green Wave and caused over $800 million in damage to Tulane's campus. Classes were quickly canceled for the semester, but Tulane's administration felt athletics continuing to compete might be important to the long-term health of the university.
One thing sports did for Tulane when it was closed is we were the only name in the face of Tulane at the time. We were out there playing a national schedule when Tulane was closed, so I think that was something that we could rally behind.
But the face of the university would be located far away from New Orleans. Every team but cross country and track was relocated to other campuses in Texas and Louisiana, where they continue to practice and compete. Tulane football would play 11 games in 11 weeks as the visiting team in 11 different stadiums. It was like a 4-month road trip for every team.
We were in Lubbock, and the people there were wonderful to us. The difficult thing was we weren't sure how to proceed. You know, what do you do on another campus? What do you do with recruiting? What do you do? We didn't have any gear. When you think about uniforms, computers, any of that, everything was here. So every day was a new challenge. One of our athletes had lost her home, her family was displaced and was living in New York. It really was a different challenge when you thought about what people were going through personally at the time.
The budget strain forced Tulane to temporarily suspend 8 programs when they returned to campus. University alumni rallied behind the teams, raising more than $130 million for the programs to help bring them and their facilities back. By 2011, all 16 teams were reinstated. The Green Wave men's tennis team had historically been one of its most successful, winning 23 conference titles and an NCAA championship. They returned to competition in 2008.
I always thought it was a winning situation, even though it was in such dire straits. At that point, I looked and said, hey, I think this place can be great again. I think the kids that we're getting really want to be part of that rebuilding idea. And that's what we tell our recruits and the guys on our team. It's like, remember, we're doing something unique. We're doing something that's never been done before in tennis.
Boris's program is the perfect illustration of Tulane's resurgence. After finishing 3-16 using 9 freshmen and 6 walk-ons in his first year, they returned to the NCAA tournament in 2017.
We had all the support we needed from the university. It was just this vision that said we want to go forward and we need to do this, 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 and this, and this. And you have all this contagious kind of positive energy around you.
Green Wave baseball, men's basketball, and women's basketball have all returned to the postseason in recent seasons. They've done so with athletes who themselves were impacted by Katrina when they were anywhere from 5 to 11 years old. 80 current Green Wave student athletes are from Gulf Coast areas that were impacted back in 2005. 26 are from New Orleans.
Both my grandparents' houses were completely wiped. We had to evacuate the school, and I went to a school out in Destrehan for a little while. While what happened was really bad, I thought at the same time it really brought together our city and the communities and everything to help out one another.
We have one on our roster right now that was displaced to Florida, and she came back. A lot of them want to come back home, and it's been a unique feeling that even this many years later that those people still have a kinship with the city.
On homecoming weekend, 10 years after Katrina, all 308 student athletes from 2005-06, plus their coaches and support staff, were inducted into the Tulane Athletics Hall of Fame. It was a one-of-a-kind induction for a group that went through an unparalleled experience.
I look at Tulane and where we were then and where we are now, and we're stronger than we've ever been. So I definitely believe situations like that can make you stronger, and it certainly did.
New Orleans itself, as you know, is a culture of its own. There's no place like it in America, and Tulane's part of that. I feel like that's why we're all together in this big family, Tulane family we call it, and we help each other out and push each other to try to get to the next level.
The power of sports is alive and well in Tulane athletics, one of the most remarkable comeback stories in college sports history. When we come back, we'll give you our update on Fields and Futures programs in Oklahoma City. Hurricane Katrina also damaged the building behind me, now called the Smoothie King Center, leading to the relocation of the New Orleans Hornets to Oklahoma City for 2 years and then their return. Not only are the Hornets now Pelicans, an important part of the New Orleans sports scene, but it also validated Oklahoma City as an NBA market, leading to the relocation and creation of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Speaking of Oklahoma City, it's time to take our monthly look back at the impact of Fields and Futures, a nonprofit in Oklahoma City committed to rebuilding 42 inner-city athletic fields for Oklahoma's largest school district. Believing every child deserves the opportunity to experience the power of sports for himself, and it starts with a safe place to play, a field to call home. Today we introduce you to Diamante, a student athlete at Northwest Clawson High School who finds peace on the track and a place to pursue his dreams.
Running is like a task. It's a challenge to yourself, because if you can't beat your own time, then what makes you think you can beat anybody else's time? Well, my name is Diamante Harper, and I'm a senior at Northwest Clawson High School. Like my middle school years, I had bad anger problems. I could say, like, fighting-wise, I had like bad choices.
Kids are surrounded by a lot of negative influence. I mean, think of someone who doesn't have anything going on for them, just outside of going to school, going to work. So there's not that motivation to succeed or that push that kids need a lot.
I started doing track. At first, I didn't like it. I was scared. I didn't think I was gonna be able to keep up with anybody. Whenever the gun popped, we started racing, I just felt just life. I was just so happy. It made me feel like I'm just free.
It's accountability to try to be doing the right thing. Some kids maybe not be making good grades in high school because they didn't care, and now there's a reason to care. But when the finances aren't there, a lot of kids wouldn't be able to participate in meets because you can only take so many. Fields and Futures came to me and said they want to give a grant for you all to have the same opportunities as all the other schools around. It's just the kindness and the generosity for them to care and show these kids that they're worth it.
Whenever I messed up, there's a lot of consequences towards it. Like, you can't do no sports. And that was just hurting me. So I said, I can't do that. I love my sports. I gotta get my act right. It pushed me harder to keep my grades up, so now I can be able to get my diploma. I want to graduate out of college. It's a lot of opportunities. It's a lot of opportunities.
Thank you, Diamante, for sharing your story with us, and thank you, Coach Hubbard, for doing all you do to encourage athletes to pursue a better life. Social Spotlight up next on Power of Sports, right after this. Every month, we'd like to take a look at the teams and athletes making a difference in the communities they represent in a segment we call the Social Spotlight, and Dwayne Taylor has more.
Thanks, Rick. Let's stay in New Orleans for our first story, where one of its favorite athletes continues to do amazing work. Saints quarterback Drew Brees Foundation recently opened Walnut Street Playground, the first playground in the Big Easy that caters to children of all abilities. Swings, slides, and even zip lines were built, offering full access to wheelchairs. Other aspects of the design were made to make it friendly for kids with sensory challenges. The Breeze Dream Foundation has now contributed over $25 million to causes all around the world. The Minnesota Golden Gophers women's hockey team recently continued an annual tradition with a great purpose. Once a year, fans are invited to bring a new stuffed animal to a specific game and toss it onto the ice after the Gophers' first goal. It's called the Teddy Bear Toss, and every stuffed animal collected is delivered to kids in the University of Minnesota Children's Hospital. This was the Gophers' 5th Teddy Bear Toss. The idea comes from the Calgary Hitmen, a junior hockey league team that has collected almost 350,000 stuffed animals over the last 23 seasons, all going to local agencies and charities. UFC star Diego Sanchez met Isaac Marquez at a mixed martial arts training gym in Albuquerque last year. Marquez, a 32-year-old with Down syndrome, was a huge Ultimate Fighting fan who started training at the gym with Sanchez. Inspired by his dedication, Sanchez announced on social media that they would fight each other in front of a packed arena in Marquez's debut. And they did exactly that. Marquez beat the veteran with a first-round submission hold and dedicated the win to his deceased mother. It was a moment that nobody in attendance or either fighter will ever forget. I'm Dwayne. That's it for Social Spotlight. Back to Rick in New Orleans.
That's all from the Big Easy. I'm Rick Horrow. We'll see you next time on The Power of Sports, presented by Group 1001.